to me, it's heartbreaking to watch our country go down a path that could have easily been avoided, to learn the lessons of the past, especially our foreign policy blunders. We knew that going off to a far-off place and fighting people we don't understand who have home field advantage is going to result in a military defeat. We knew this from Vietnam. We saw it happening in Gulf War II, which took place after this war and became the second longest war in American history. And I asked this question: if we were going to go into Iraq, why didn't we do it in Gulf War I? We had them. We could have killed Bin Laden. We could have killed Saddam Hussein then. So I mean, to take the first war here and the second effort, this war on terrorism, and to go into Afghanistan and then piggyback the Iraq war on top of it, not only did it divert our funds and divert the number of troops that we needed, but it resulted in 2 losses. And we've withdrawn from Iraq, and we've seen what's happened there. It's become destabilized. So what happened now? We got to go back, as it turns out. For the benefit of everybody, I'm going to post this on our website, and I'm also going to post it on our Facebook page. This timeline right here, I'm not going to click on it and take you through it, but the timeline of events from 1999 to the present was created by the Council for Foreign Relations. So if you go to cfr.org, you can take a look at their Afghanistan timeline. And it tells the whole story much more depth than what I just told you, but you can get all the facts there, and it's been vetted by academics. It's the go-to source of what happened, what went wrong, and specific, in time series sequences, how one thing led to another, and ultimately we're in an unwinnable war now. So the United States mission officially as a U.S. mission ends 2 years into the war on terror, and it transitions into becoming a NATO operation, which is interesting. That's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was created to fight against Russia. And now NATO is in Afghanistan. This is not within the scope of NATO's mandate. No NATO ally country is threatened, but we have decided that we're going to hand it over to NATO and have an international force there. I asked the question, why isn't this a UN mission? Why isn't there a UN peacekeeping force there? Why don't they take on the Taliban? Why don't they set up infrastructure in this country, which is what the UN's good at? Healthcare, medical aid, running water. These are not things that the U.S. military does. All right, the International Security Assistance Force, this is NATO's name, ISAF, established as a regional presence. You can see through the arrows how our guys moved in to sweep in to lock in the Taliban into one region of the country and finish them off. Except the problem is this part of the country is the most difficult terrain. The highest mountaintops are located there. Has anybody seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War? How about Lions for Lands? So you have a glimpse into how treacherous this terrain is through those Hollywood productions, which are specifically about soldiers in Afghanistan and the challenges that American policymakers face. So if you like movies, those are 2 that I recommend on this topic. Again, that's Charlie Wilson's War, which tells a story of how we got into Afghanistan. And then the other one is Lions for Lands, which tells the story of 2 students who were inspired by their political science teacher to join the military and go into Afghanistan, which I'm not advocating that, but I'm saying some people are interested in these things, and I thought maybe you might connect to that story. And it's very interesting. So anyways, ISAF is there, and this is how they operate today. The regions that are the most uncontrollable are out here. This is Herat region, this is Kandahar region, and we've had a real hard time getting the locals to work with us. They've been hiding, the bad guys. And you know, the situation here is one in which the bad guys don't wear uniforms. They're shooting at you, they throw their gun down, they go back and they're taking their steak and herding their goats. And so you don't know who to shoot at. It's a very difficult situation. The other thing that's difficult about this is that when people go back to tending their goats and they run into their houses, you got to go door to door. And so you get engaged in urban combat. Urban combat is very, very difficult to sustain over a long period of time. And one of the things that we're seeing now is that when our veterans are coming back into urban environments, they're having a very difficult time transitioning back into civilian life. So the long-term effects of urban combat are going to be some things that we're going to have to deal with through the VA, which is a big portion of that $6 trillion I was talking about. It's not all bombs and tanks. A lot of that is going to be health care for our veterans. Okay, the federally administered tribal areas comes back into the fray here. Again, remember this story goes back over 200 years where we don't really know where Pakistan ends and where Afghanistan begins. And what happens is that the Taliban are moving back and forth and evading the American military and our drones and other air power. We're looking in Afghanistan, which is where we have the authority to fly. We do not have authority to fly inside of Pakistan, but as President Bush did before and President Obama has escalated, we really don't care what Pakistan says about their airspace. We're going to go into it because the bad guys are hiding beneath. And so what has become a real policy consideration for us now is that while we're conducting air sorties inside of Pakistan's airspace without their permission, the local Pakistanis are turning against America. So we're losing a second very important friend in the region. The Pakistani intelligence, ISI, Inter-Services Intelligence, that's their CIA, has been working with the Afghans, has been training the Afghans, has been providing them with weapons. And at the largest military base in Pakistan, located in Abbottabad, it's been mispronounced a lot in the media, by the way, it's not Abbottabad, it's Abbottabad, named for General Abbott of the British colonial empire. That's Pakistan's largest army training facility. My grandmother lives on the grounds of that training facility, and Osama bin Laden was killed 2 blocks away. There's no way that happened without the ISI's involvement. Hope they don't have an assassin anywhere nearby, but I will publicly state that there's no way that happened, that he went unnoticed in a small military town. It's just a garrison town. People had to know he was there, or he literally got there and never ever came outside. I mean, not even to be tailored for clothes. That doesn't make sense. You got a 6'2" Arab guy, he's gonna stand out like a sore thumb in Pakistani society. We're shorter people. So how that happened for so long is a real policy blunder. It looks really, really bad for the Pakistanis. The trust between the CIA and the ISI is broken. And so what we're going to have to deal with when it comes to Afghanistan and Pakistan is now a combined policy. We call it the AFPAC policy. So if you're Googling any of this stuff, you want to Google AFPAC because our policy is now joined for these 2 countries. Pakistan considers Afghanistan important in their nuclear combat strategy. It's a strategy known as strategic depth. Pakistan says if India nukes us, we're going to fall back into Afghanistan, and so we have a place to hide from the radioactivity. The funny thing about strategic depth is, for the Taliban, it worked the other way around, and I don't think the Pakistanis anticipated that. But either way, it became a real serious problem for the United States. As I mentioned before, half of Afghanistan is inside of Pakistan, and there really is no border between the 2 countries. So for American policymakers, it's now a double problem. Okay, next month, a series of events have taken place that lead us to this point. In 2009, President Obama said, like in the movie Lions for Lambs that came out in 2006, where Tom Cruise's actor says, we need to surge the troops in Afghanistan if we're going to win this war. Well, I don't know if art imitates life or life imitates art. In 2009, I guess President Obama saw that movie and said, let's try that. So we tripled our presence from 36,000 to 99,000 troops. It's commonly misreported that we had over 100,000. We didn't crack the 100,000. Anybody know what happened? 2009? Spring of 2009?
Didn't we lose a bunch of soldiers to like some really heavy guerrilla combat?
We lost fewer soldiers that year. We rolled up the Taliban. We rolled them up pretty good. They retreated. We took over Afghanistan, and the following year we would kill bin Laden. So we rolled them up pretty good. They essentially left the country and went and hid in nearby countries, but we got them pretty good. And the same thing happened in Iraq. Earlier, in 2006 to 2008, we surged troops into Iraq. Probably the same group of troops. Unfortunately, for a lot of people in the military, it wasn't a one-year combat tour and then you got rest. You went sustained combat tours, one after another after another. That was called the stopgap policy. Again, unprecedented in American military history for our soldiers to have seen so much combat over such a long period of time. So we rolled them up pretty good, and we did the same thing in Iraq. Those guys in Iraq, they left and went and hid in Syria, and we see what happened to them. They would eventually come back. In 2010, we said that we would withdraw in 2011. In 2012, we said we would withdraw in 2014. And so here we are in 2014, and the question is, are we going to push it back to 2016? The experts are debating that right now. NATO's ISAF force will transition into becoming a counterterrorism training force, and the United States and allies are expected to be Afghanistan's Air Force until the year 2017. Fresh, right off the press here for you, on September 30th, 2014, we signed a bilateral security agreement, and it says that NATO can stay until 2024 if it wants to. However, if it doesn't want to, both sides have to give 2 years notice. It's an interesting way to have a relationship. This marriage will end in 2 years. Okay, I have a whole bunch of clips here for you. So again, when I give you a copy of the PowerPoint, the internet's not working here. I've been trying to click on these things. Of a bunch of people, and I'll just basically tell you what they say. The Special Inspector General for Afghanistan's Reconstruction, who is a member of Congress, has said that the country is more unstable now than it has been in the past, and so withdrawing is probably a bad idea. U.S. General John Campbell, who will be the leader of ISAF, has said we should wait until 2016 to finish our training component. Leaving in December is a bad idea. Commander of all U.S. forces, General Joseph Dunford, said, do not withdraw. We will have another Iraq on our hands. And I asked the question, what happened to our Marshall Plan? What happened to nation building in Afghanistan? When we built Germany and we rebuilt England and we rebuilt Japan, it took 70 plus years. And Afghanistan was given 13 years, and most of that was sustained combat. The Marshall Plan was after World War II when the combat ended. I don't think we've given Afghanistan a fair shake in our foreign policy, and I foresee that what these experts are saying will most likely come true. We'll have an unstable country and it will become destabilized, and in the process we'll probably lose a nuclear country in Pakistan to the instability, and I think the world becomes a much more dangerous place. What about Afghanistan? The people don't have a government. Justice, liberty, equality don't exist. The role of women is still not central to a civil society. Opium production is up to its all-time high this year. So more bad news. The world wants to get high, and Afghanistan's providing. I make the comment that hungry people don't care about voting. Afghanistan still lives in dejected poverty. They've gone under that $2 now. They're at $1.92 this year. So that's another problem. They still don't have an infrastructure. The United States tried to build an infrastructure. The Taliban are destroying it. And this spring, when the Taliban come out of hiding, because it's wintertime there, it's really serious wintertime, like Siberian winter. When things thaw, I expect that the Taliban will reemerge and will again continue to attack the infrastructure and terrorize the people. So I think that withdrawing in 2014 is going to be a big mistake, and I hope that our policymakers seriously consider staying at least till 2024, as we had talked about. I know that the American people probably don't have a favorable opinion about that. It's going to be expensive. We're going to have to send more of our young men and women out there, but this may be necessary for global peace and order. I'll take your questions now.
The honor code that's within Pakistan, does that supersede the government's codes and regulations? So like if someone acts within this honor code, and is it correct?
Let me make a clarification. The honor code is for the tribal people who are caught on both sides of this border. So the Pashtun people, who are the majority of Pakistan and are about 20% of Pakistan. In Afghanistan, there are no laws above the tribal code. That is the code. That is the law. Okay. In Pakistan, they live in federally administered tribal areas. There is Pakistani law that supersedes tribal law, but the Pakistanis don't enforce it in that area, so it becomes the law there too.
Okay.
Is tribal law the reason Saddam Hussein got asylum? in Afghanistan?
Who did?
Is travel law the reason that Saddam Hussein got asylum in Afghanistan?
Osama bin Laden?
Osama bin Laden,
Yes,
yeah.
that's correct. Al-Qaeda said that the Americans are trying to kill us, we need a place to hide. And they said, okay, come here, because we don't like those Americans either. Plus you asked, and I'm obligated to help you. What happened was the Taliban got in bed with some really bad people. We were going to hunt and kill Al-Qaeda, and when the Taliban leader, Mullah Muhammad Omar, said, I'm sorry, President Bush, but I can't hand over my guests to you, then President Bush said, then we'll have to kill you too. Yes?
What, you're talking about a country that seems to thrive on conflict. What would be your fix-all? Like, how do we stop this for this country and bring peace to this region of the world?
In 1958, People magazine ran the cover, Kabul, Afghanistan, the Paris of Asia, where there were discos and miniskirts, and Kabul University had an exchange program with Princeton University. There was a better time, and there was a different place, and there were different leaders. And I would say that Afghanistan has absolutely not thrived because of conflict. It's been decimated like no other country in the world. It is one of the poorest places in the world. It has, without international assistance, no hope for the future. And I don't think conflict is what they want. They need to end the conflict, and they need to get back to the days of the discotheques and the universities and engaging with the West and being connected to the world. They're right next to Turkey. If Turkey can do it, even Iran is very westernized. People don't know that, but they have Facebook and they have cell phones and all that stuff. And the Afghans are like lost in time. It really is like the land of dinosaurs. It's a place that's stuck 1,500 years ago, and if it could modernize, I think they would have a future. So if you ask me what the fix-all is, I would say being a member of the international community, get involved with the global economy. Don't produce opium, maybe something else, some other cash crop. But if you have something to offer the world will care about you. And right now, it's a black market, and these are things that we have law enforcement, set up for. Afghanistan is a place with a big old bullseye on it. It's either going to be the target of crime and punishment or a military policy. So.
I know in the end you mentioned that most U.S. citizens don't want to deal with foreign problems, but also most people are either underinformed, misinformed, or just not informed at all. So should we just go against like people like you that know what's going on in that area and just do away with the
Well, we
voters?
don't directly inform foreign policy as American citizens. We let our leaders do that in Congress, right? So I would say to you that you tell them, I know you're under pressure from partisan political entities and from other constituents to withdraw from the rest of the world and to stop spending money on war and all that kind of stuff. But I'd tell you, be very judicious about where you make your investments. If you want to withdraw from the world and you don't want to pay attention to Afghanistan, and we saw what happened to them the last time we left them alone, this time you destabilize Pakistan. I ask you this question. How many dollars is it worth to keep nuclear weapons out of the hands of terrorists? I'll give you a blank check. Take my tax money. Don't give terrorists nukes. That's got to be the most important thing to us. And they're very, very close to destabilizing Pakistan. And the loyalties of the Pakistani government are to the Taliban, not to its own people. Unfortunately, it's a very bad political situation inside of Pakistan as well, which is another topic for another day. Yes, sir.
Links between the Afghanistan mess and Syria and Iraq, or is it just different faces of the puzzle that's the Middle East?
It's a great question. I've actually had the opportunity to go to the Council for Foreign Relations and speak to them on this particular topic. The question was ISIS, 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 ISIS. That's what's in the news. And I made the case that Islamic-based jihadis, they don't have countries, and they don't have honor codes that are loyal to their tribes. They are on a different mission, and that mission will unite these guys. And so I would say that as we glimpse into the future, this Islamic State is only divided by Iran, which is why I said I think we got to talk about Iran. If we see jihadist elements congregating on one side of Iran and on the other side of Iran, I don't think that Iran's going to be able to control this situation. And if I'm looking into my crystal ball, I foresee the day that Iran becomes an American ally again.
Well, they're waiting for it now. It was reported, okay, it was reported in the European press. There is a media blackout in the US, but that's a different story.
We have not lifted our sanctions against Iran, which is the thing that they're most pissed off about. But they would very much like us to ease our sanctions on them and the money of their private citizens that is invested in American companies. We've frozen several billions of dollars, $7 or $8 billion in assets of theirs. If we gave them that back, we'd be on the road to mending the fence pretty quickly.
But they are being mentioned an awful lot more in foreign policy speeches from the Senate and the White House. And I think that's what it is. Iran are being brought back into the fold, so to speak. And because it's mutually beneficial to both parties.
Right. This is a very difficult question to ask people. But is a nuclear Iran the most dangerous problem in the world right now? It might be our best counterattack to let the Iranians have nuclear weapons. I mean, I'm concerned that they may actually use them.
Very quickly, you made a point when you were speaking about President Carter, and it's not America's problem. In Nebraska, you know what is a crack in the ground? It's the Watchers in the Wall speech by Kennedy. The point I'm trying to make is, and with the greatest respect to who I'm speaking to, I am Irish. It is the US problem, because the US is the Watcher in the Wall.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter said that all of these problems are America's problems. He was the guy who said it. But it was interesting because in American political dialogue today, we say that these wars are Bush's wars and Obama's wars. No, they're not. Jimmy Carter put us down the road to war in the Middle East in 1979.
But the point I'm trying to make ultimately is Yugoslavia during the early 90s, Europe and the EU sat in their hands for 12 months and allowed abject Nazi-era Holocaust genocide to occur in Yugoslavia until the US intervened and brought in the started the UN mission and the NATO mission in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Yeah. Yeah, so NATO is effective. NATO is very effective. Yes, sir.
It seems like the Afghan culture is very precedented on their Muslim faith, and that's really cool. But how could we, if we stayed till 2024, how could we expect to bring maybe the westernized modern culture to Afghanistan?
Oh boy.
You know, how could we do that?
I'll tell you right now.
With all the
that.
conflict, how could we do that?
Don't do it. Don't do it. If people want Western lifestyles and Western values, let them aspire to them. Do not shove your culture down people's throat. They will react to it violently. So any effort to do that is misconceived. We've done it to other countries, and it's been a real serious problem for us. So I would not advocate, I would say let them see how Western institutions work and that they benefit country and people. And they should aspire to want those things. Let the people desire that. Definitely don't export.
Seems like an issue to try to get them to, you can't make someone forget their own culture.
No, yeah, and you should.
So
if that's what they want, you got to find a way. Like Turkey, right? I cited Turkey as my example. Christianity and Islam, East and West, can't live together. Turkey is the bright, shining model for the rest of the world to look at. It can happen. We don't have to say that democracy and Islam are mutually exclusive. They're not. And I use Indonesia as the example, or Malaysia too. I know their airline sucks, but their government's pretty good.
Well, to spin off of just what Josh said, how then can you have a neo-Marshall plan in a war zone that's so crazy like that, or is that what you're suggesting?
I think that you need to end the conflict, and then when conflict has subsided and people have gotten whatever their interests were taken care of, then you can begin to move forward with the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was not engaged or implemented during the war period. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that's very difficult to draw parallels to the Marshall Plan, I know I put myself in this position for doing it, but the last time that it was used, a nuclear blast silenced the conflict. And I really hope that that's not what it takes to implement a Marshall Plan in this part of the world. Do we need to evaporate a couple 100,000 people off the face of the, I don't want to see that happen. But if we continue to allow this situation to move forward with the instability that exists, nuclear weapons will come into the discussion, and then it becomes far worse.
But I believe it's not only that, because, I understand the United States want to stabilize the region because many people don't know, but this is like the blow of this oil move the world, the economy. If we don't stabilize that part of the world, all the world will suffer some consequence.
Yeah, here's one thing you could do to kind of paint a picture of hope for Afghanistan. As oil runs out, when fossil fuels run out, we know that, and anticipated between 2025 and 2050, the world will use up its oil. We're going to have to get that pipeline built, and Afghanistan is going to be critical to that pipeline. They could get rich off this thing if they would stop fighting and stop blowing up the pipeline. But the bad guys are doing that because they want to make us angry, and they want to stick it to us any way they can. But that pipeline might be Afghanistan's future. Natural gas is cheap, and they have tons of it. And we use it today. It's America's done great things with natural gas. Through the fracking process, we have a lot of it.
Yeah.
But fracking has side effects, and so this is good natural gas right out of the mountains. We just got to capture it and get it out to the ports. And right now, we don't have a way to do that. Yeah. And if anybody needs to leave, feel free to leave. I'm sorry, I'm just hanging out now. So.